Now that you have read the theoretical part of what acmeology is, I want to give you a very practical example of how this science can help you achieve your dreams. This is a very common question that I get asked in the Zoom meetings, kind of like, well, hey, that's all good. There is a science, I get it, but explain what exactly is going to be different now that the science is there and how can help me achieve what I'm trying to achieve. Excuse me. So here is an example. Let's say you want to be a famous painter like Michelangelo. If I ask you what your goal is, you're going to tell me, I want to paint a masterpiece like Michelangelo. Okay, can Acmeology help you? That's basically what this science is about. Mundane as it may sound, but this is what it boils down to. You have an idea, you have a dream. I don't care how crazy it may sound to some people, but it doesn't sound crazy to you. It's your idea, but you really don't know how to make it happen. And you can go by trial and error, you can hope on luck, or you can use a systematic approach to do that. So let's say you want to be a Michelangelo, you want to be a famous painter. Now what? Now, if I don't give you a paintbrush, you are probably out of luck as far as becoming a famous painter. You need tools. And from what I know about art, I know there are different kinds of paintbrushes. There are very fine paintbrushes. I think they're made of squirrel hair. You guys can correct me if you know more about art than I do, but I think the squirrel hair brush is the one that goes into very very fine point. You can strike a fine line with it. And they're a boar bristle brush or synthetic or whatever they are, they're thick and they're bristly, so you cannot strike a fine line with it. So if you're trying to paint a masterpiece, you're trying to paint a very nice picture, and you only have a bristle brush that can't strike a fine line, the odds are against you. So why am I saying that? Because you're going to need tools to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. I don't care how talented you are as a painter in our example. If you don't have the right tools, you're going to be at a disadvantage. So this is the practical side, the application of acmeology, and something we are going to do in this program is we are going to talk about tools. We're going to talk about time management systems, different approaches. I'm not leaving them out. But so do many other programs and tips, and you can find time management tips on YouTube every time of the day. The difference here is that we're going to use a systematic approach. So you've got your paintbrush. Now, you still want to be a famous painter, you're still putting effort towards it. Now what do you do? If you simply go and try to figure out how to paint pictures, it'll probably going to take you to the end of your life or longer to figure it out. If you go to school and if you learn elements of design, if you learn color coordination, if you learn how proportions come together in a picture, if you learn different approaches of how to paint a realistic human face, wouldn't you say that would put you closer to a goal of becoming a famous painter? So rather than trying on your own to reinvent the wheel, basically to try to rediscover everything that went into putting together the science of graphic design, in this case, the science of what makes art, if you try to relearn it on your own based on only your experience and only in your lifespan, you're at a disadvantage against people who take everything that has been studied in this aspect and put together and presented in a systematic approach. So now you know what the proportions are. Now you know what colors go together. So your chances of becoming a famous painter now are a lot higher. And this is, again, where I emphasize a systematic approach versus what we can term YouTube approach. Just, go there and, try to collect enough data and enough knowledge and enough tips to where you hope you happen upon the right one, or playing a roulette, basically. Or worse, because you get sidetracked on different tangents. And so anyway, system. So you have your paintbrush, you have your system, you went to school to be a graphic designer. Are you going to be a famous painter right now? On live YouTube meetings, I actually ask this question and I try to hear what people have to say about this. One of the answers that I liked is that one girl said, well, I don't know if I'm going to be a famous painter, but I will certainly be closer to becoming a famous painter than if I didn't have a paintbrush and if I didn't go to school. I feel I am empowered, I'm a lot closer, well, which is great. But if I gave you a paintbrush and if I gave you the knowledge of how art works, why wouldn't you be a famous painter? You know everything there is to know, you have the tools. Why aren't you successful? And people say, well, when it comes to painting, there is such thing as inspiration. It's something Michelangelo had. He had this vision that he then used those tools and that knowledge to put it into, well, not on paper, but on a wall, but, figuratively speaking. So, okay, inspiration. Said, okay, what if I explained it to you like that? If I gave you these kind of tools now, say, okay, go to the ocean shore at sunset. Stand there when the sun is going down over the ocean. Look at it. See what you're going to feel. Experience that feeling. See if that feeling brings a memory. See if that feeling is associated with something maybe from your childhood, or it reminds you of something. Does it trigger a feeling or an image? And if it does, what kind of imagery can you use to describe that emotion? If it's fear, maybe it's a monster. If it's awe, maybe it's some combination of colors that are going from dark to bright to dark that elicit that kind of feeling. Can you nail in yourself that feeling, and can you use imagery to describe that? So if you simply wanted to be a painter and you didn't really have a vision or something, because some people want to, they already have an idea that they want to bring out to people. They're born as they have this vision in their mind that all they need is a tool and the knowledge of how to translate the idea on paper, like I said. But if you didn't, now that you went through this exercise of sorts, now you're even closer to becoming a famous painter. So if you do have in yourself to trigger that idea and imagery, you're pretty much there. You're pretty much going to be successful at that. except that you're going to have to practice, obviously, because just because you read a book about how to, let's say, knit, the first time you're going to try and actually knit, you're going to discover that, well, yeah, but, it takes you forever to make them loops. And, if you've ever tried that, or cook a recipe, even, the first time you try it, usually doesn't come out as good than after a couple times. So now that you have the knowledge and you have the tools and you have the vision, you still need to practice. Practice is a very important part of success. So if you have the tools, if you have the knowledge, if you have the vision, the inspiration, and you're adamant about putting consistent effort into making it happen, you're 99% there. 99. Because what's the catch here? And the catch here in our example is that whether or not you can actually trigger a vision that most people will think of as a masterpiece. Do you have it in yourself? So this is your inner potential, and that's where it comes in. So that, of course, I can't give you, nobody can give you. That's, part of the divine, if you may. But let's rewind this whole picture to the beginning. When you said you wanted to be a famous painter, why did you say that? Is that because, like I already said, you already had some sort of a vision that just is waiting to get out on paper on the wall somehow? You just need the skills and the tools to take it from inside of you and present it to the world. Is that why you wanted to be a famous painter? Well, then that's your answer. The problem's already solved. Or did you just pull out that idea out of thin air pretty much and decided, well, I gotta be somebody, so I, painting is something that I read about in a book recently or heard in a program, and it sounds like possibly a lucrative thing, or maybe I watched some kind of documentary in Michelangelo and I thought that was totally cool. So where did you come up with this idea of becoming a famous painter? Did it come from you? Did it come from some external something or other? I call those external programs. As we grow up, we're constantly told how we need to be, what we need to do, how to act, so on and so forth. And sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's not. And we can be very prone to those kind of programs. So until and unless you learn how to tell a good program from bad program, you could potentially be controlled by something like that without even knowing it. So are you being controlled by somebody else's desires and opinions when you say, I have a goal of becoming a famous painter, for instance? Maybe your parents want you to become a painter and you really didn't have any inclinations or interests, but you think that's what you need to do because everybody tells you that's what you need to do. Or again, is it someone else's opinion? Someone else said it was a lucrative way or an honorable way. You're going to be famous. So it's an easy, quick, and easy way to get famous, for instance. So why did you take that decision? And if you didn't take that decision based on something within you, then by the time you get to the end of the road, you've spent a lot of time, a lot of dedication, possibly money, but you've invested yourself into becoming a painter, and you get to the end of the road, and lo and behold, you just can't trigger that inspiration. You go to the ocean to see the sunset, and all you see is the planets rising and the wind currents, and you're very much left brain, so you're not seeing any emotion. All you see is just the natural happenings, and they don't trigger anything. So what do you do at that point? Well, like I said already, there isn't much that you can do. So it's best to determine what is your inner potential at the beginning of the journey than at the end. And then also, there's exceptions to that, because when there is really no time limit on how fast or how slow you can bring your potential to life. And some people may have spent their entire life doing something that's not really their calling, and then they discover it towards the end of their life, and within years they awaken that potential and they're successful. So I'm not saying that these are decisions and calls that need to be made at the beginning of your life. I'm just saying that this is a call that's helpful to make at the beginning of your journey. So if you're coming to this program thinking, okay, I'm going to be successful, I'm going to set goals, where I would start is helping you evaluate those goals, evaluate your personality, evaluate a lot of things, and then make an informed decision on where you're going. Make sure that that is something that you really want. And, especially, this day and age, and especially with starting your own business, I see that a lot of times they call it in psychology the shiny object syndrome. So today I want to start a business in cooking, and I start working on it. I spend a lot of time, resources, money, and then I realize, well, gee, maybe that's not the best business to start. So tomorrow I'm going to start a business about growing vegetables, or you name it, because it looks better. And that's because your initial goal is not very well defined. So you see how much time and money you're going to spend chasing gimmicks if you don't define your focus starting out. So the Unfog program, based on Acmeology, is going to help you with these exact things. Define your focus, define your goal, give you the tools, give you the right approaches, give you the right system, and give you the inspiration. So, or not the inspiration, but the ways to get to inspiration, the emotional part of things. And since everybody's different, how can I have an approach that fits everybody and everybody can use and get there? And I don't, because there is as many approaches as there are goals, and there are more goals than there's people, because one person can have several. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to go through all these components in a circular type structure. We're going to start broad. So we're going to cover everything on very high level, high level. And then we're going to talk about the personality typing. We're going to talk about emotional intelligence. We're going to talk about the practical application, the tools themselves, digital organization tools, you name it. And then we're going to loop around and come back to the other subjects. And we're going to narrow it as we go down. So it's like, funnel almost. And so that way we are going to cover everything, and You're going to learn things as you go along. So if, for instance, you are a very systematic, practical person and you start hearing discussions on how our brain works and why it works, be patient. It's important to know for practical application, but this also shall pass. And we're going to get to the very practical step-by-step time management things. Do this, don't do that. Here is a chart. And then again, if you're a thinker and you really don't like the details of charts and diagrams and do this and don't do that, you want to be motivated from within, again, be patient. We'll get to the how things work part, and then you can fine tune it to suit yourself from there, and you'll have a very good system that way. Well, let's continue on to the next subjects.